I suppose I should just let it speak for itself.
Hello there.
Amphibia as we know it has been forever changed, with the conclusion of the episode Olivia and Union, as Marcy Wu learned of a fate worse than death that awaited her. Andrias unveiling the true intentions of his lord, a hive mind referred to as the Core, which selected Marcy as its new host, transforming her into what the credits called Darcy, presumably short for Dark Marcy, a major antagonist who has now claimed a pretty large spot in the season 3 opening. However, who and what exactly is Darcy? What is this new persona capable of? And can Marcy be saved? Let's answer these questions as we break down everything we know about Darcy. And to stay in the loop of all things Amphibia, please subscribe to the Roundtable with notifications on so you never miss a video. With all that said, let's dive in. First things first, it's worth clearing up that Darcy is not Marcy. I wouldn't even necessarily say Darcy is the core possessing Marcy's body, or that Marcy's been corrupted. And I don't believe Marcy's mind has been completely overridden either. Instead, I view Darcy as a merger between Marcy Wu and the core, or the minds within the core. She's been assimilated into the hive mind, and thus may have some control. As Andrias said, the core is a collection of Amphibia's greatest minds, formed into one being. The mechanical shell that previously hosted the core sported 9 eyes, 8 of them representing those aforementioned greatest minds, with the giant eye in the center representing the core itself. And we know there are indeed 8 minds within the core, as 8 amphibians were depicted being connected to a singular source on the entrance to the chamber Marcy's body was held in. There were also exactly 8 tombs in the crypt underneath Utopia Castle in the sleepover to end all sleepovers. So these guys had long passed when they were resurrected in some capacity by Andrias. With all of this being said, Darcy's helmet does not feature 9 eyes, but 10, factoring in the inclusion of Marcy in her own mind. If it was simply a case of body jacking and nothing more, I feel as if the helmet would still only present 9 eyes. Also, Andrias refers to the core by it, instead of something like he or they, which reinforces the idea that the core operates more on the logic of a fusion from Steven Universe, a being that's his own person with the various traits of its components, rather than like that episode of OK KO where KO and TKO try to pilot KO's body together. Not to mention, the core desired Marcy as a host because of her intelligence. It values her mind, which implies there's intentions to utilize that brain of hers. So, this reasonably begs the question, where within the core is Marcy? If her mind still exists, why wouldn't she just be able to fight back? Well, assuming there's some form of a mindscape within the core, it'd be easy to imagine that Marcy is outnumbered, unable to have direct influence over her body's actions. But she's still accessible to the core, and still able to communicate with the minds inside of it. Perhaps it's similar to an Alien X situation, and Marcy has to attempt to debate and reason with the minds inside the core to sway it away from interdimensional conquest. We do know Marcy is active in some capacity, and her cooperation within the core is necessary, as we have yet to hear a voice that's presumably within the core communicating with her from the Season 3A trailer.
Don't you think it's time to say goodbye to those childhood friends of yours?
One of the minds within the core is trying to coerce Marcy into letting go of Anne and Sasha, devaluing the bonds of friendship, which could be another reason why Andrias himself no longer puts trust into others. Not just from his proclaimed bad experience with previous colleagues, but because he may have been fed similar rhetoric by this entity. Still, the core getting Marcy to play along with its desires may be a necessary step in getting the most out of Marcy as its host, keeping her in the worst state of mind in order to carry out its bidding. It's also possible Marcy may be restrained inside the core, ensnared in her greatest fears, similar to the illusions projected by the walls in Olivia and Union, something she has to overcome in order to break free. However, I also think Darcy may be playing by Bipper rules. Marcy's habits and mannerisms will still be present, so we can expect Darcy to retain Marcy's clumsiness, her tendency to fixate on a particular objective, and maybe even her knack for Cave spontaneously setting on fire. Although Marcy's brain may have made her the optimal host in the core's eyes, her weaknesses may be a blind spot that'll be the core's downfall. But since we're talking about weaknesses, what about Darcy's strengths? Does Darcy have any powers? Like again, I get wanting Marcy for her intelligence, but this is still the body of a teenage girl. Not exactly the ideal physique for a conqueror, despite having Andrias as muscle. Well, aside from having access to Marcy's crossbow and archery skills, I suspect this suit she was placed in has some tricks up its sleeve that we've yet to explore. I speculated before that Marcy's calamity powers could feature telepathy, telekinesis, any kind of mind-based ability really, and I think that may be what they're going for with the core in general, given that the chamber Marcy was held in did feature walls full of orange robotic eyes that scanned Marcy, Union, and Olivia's minds for their greatest fears. It's reasonable to assume that Darcy would have access to similar similar technology, being able to read the minds of others, utilizing their fears and trauma against them, or even the ability to quickly scan and memorize someone's attack patterns. Like if Sasha and Darcy had an encounter, and next thing she knew, Sasha found herself fighting someone who's copied her exact moveset. Ultimately, Darcy's greatest strength may be strategy, the ability to stay 2 steps ahead of everyone else. Although, I'm still holding on to the idea that Marcy and Sasha could be reconnected to their respective Calamity Stones. And if Darcy is still in control when that happens, it may spell trouble for our heroes, who now have to face off against a Super Saiyan super genius. And this brings us to the biggest question Darcy's existence poses. How can Marcy be saved? Like most stories where a character becomes a prisoner in their own body, I think the answer to rescuing Marcy doesn't lie in violence, but with love. After all, it conquers all. Marcy was at rock bottom when being assimilated into the core. She's still suffering from the mental torment her actions provided, fearing that Anne and Sasha will want nothing to do with her now that they know she was the reason they were trapped in Amphibia for all those months. These fears can't exactly be eased until she has a conversation with these two, which unfortunately may not be for quite some time. Not as herself anyways. As I speculated before, it's possible that as the heart of the Calamity Trio, Anne could traverse the mindscape to liberate Marcy, using the power of love and friendship through the direct use of her Calamity abilities, or a third party's assistance, like magic from Maddie or Valeriana, one already having a connection to Marcy, and the other having a connection to the stones, likely having to train Anne in her powers when the gang finally returns to Amphibia. It's also possible that Anne could reach Marcy's heart through meaningful conversation while avoiding Darcy's attacks, giving Marcy enough control to break free. Either way, I believe communication is key here, and that when Marcy does return to her normal self, it'll be because of Anne opting to take a peaceful route over violence, probably giving shippers more fuel for the fire in the process. And hey, given the teases of sparks between Marcy and Anne, I wouldn't be surprised if that's paid off in a big way, breaking the cartoon side of the internet in the process. But that's everything we know about Darcy, and as always, I want to know what you guys think. How do you feel about this new antagonist? How much havoc do you think Darcy's going to wreak on Anne and the Planters? And who do you think will face off against Darcy first? Anne or Sasha? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, or keep the conversation going over at Roundtable Vids and at Vox on both Twitter and Instagram. Special thanks to JANKYBONES for creating another amazing thumbnail. For more of their amazing art, you can find them on Twitter and Instagram at BoneJanky, and subscribe to their YouTube channel. Links down below in the description. If you enjoyed this video, please throw it a like, and subscribe to the Roundtable for more great cartoon content. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day. See ya!